Hello, family members. I hope you're having a nice day today. I want to talk to you today about apathy and the paradoxical power of apathy because I think people are maybe underappreciating the role that apathy has had in our political process for quite some time now. Okay, all dogs can chill. Got one over here scratching himself. Jeez. Anyway, by the way, if you're getting Pugsley, me too. But, I just decided to roll with it. Whatever. uh, when you break down the numbers of the real difference in the Biden voters and the Harris voters, there's a few million people just missing. There were however many people that cared enough to vote before that just didn't. And those generally aren't the people who are truly apathetic. They're the ones who actually care about something. They're voting or not voting for some sort of principled reason. But if you look at everyone, the entire population of the country, and then compare it to the people who voted, not voting by far is the winner. Not being checked in or caring about the political process in any way is the by and far winner when it comes to politics in the United States. Apathy is what drives our political engine. If the politicians had to actually appeal to all Americans, to answer to all Americans, they would not be able to operate. What they do is they find narrow groups that they can target and try to get enough engagement to be able to sneak out a vote, eke out a vote. There's the word I was looking for. It's not about convincing Americans this is the right way to do things. It's about convincing enough of your base to actually get out and vote in a particular cycle. That's it. And it creates really perverse incentives. But this is one of those times where I think the apathy is an intended result rather than an undesirable side effect of like modern life or something. I think, and I, it's not actually me thinking. I've actually heard Republican operatives in various scenarios admit less people voting is good for them. Their views are broadly unpopular, and the only way you're going to get that through is to have less people vote. And they're well aware of it. And the Democrats, to the same extent, I think, they've been playing themselves in opposition to whatever the Republicans have been doing for all of my life, basically. I mean, Bill Clinton really was the beginning of the Democrats doing that. Reagan and conservative politics was so broadly popular that the way that Clinton tried to appeal and effectively did appeal to the nation was by taking his party to the right and, making himself more appealing to the center. and the people that would, see through the extremity and the danger of what the Republicans were wanting to do. And they've basically been a reactionary party in all that time. And that's going to create a lot of voter apathy just on its own. What's exciting about a party that is always just reacting to whatever weird stuff the other party wants to do? That's not a very inspiring thing. It's not a very inspiring way to campaign. We are all worked to death. And, we're all convinced that, spending hours commuting is a viable option, which is so wild when you think about that. I mean, there are people who spend hours every single day basically doing unpaid work. It's not like they're enjoying themselves. Actually, they are paying to do it too, because they've got to pay for gas or transit fees or whatever, So, yeah, we're just all spread so thin, and we're all told that we need to have a detached house with a big grass lawn and, 5 more bedrooms than we actually need, and pools and RVs and ATVs and all sorts of toys. It's just more and more and more. We're always given these ideas that we need more, so that we can never stop and think about what we actually need. I have this cousin who is a metal guy. He's in like 2 different metal bands. He's a bassist, I believe, in both of them. I'm not sure. He's a guitar nerd, I know that. And I've never thought of him as being like the deepest person. He's kind of a live for the moment kind of guy. He loves his wife, loves his daughters, does what he needs to support his family, all that stuff. But he also, he's into rock and roll, well, metal bands, and he's going to shows and having a good time a lot of time too, And he actually posted on Facebook about about a like demonstration that was going on in Morgantown, West Virginia today. They were all over the country, I guess, from people wanting to protest Trump and Musk. And he said that he went, and I didn't intend to, but ended up giving like a speech, And we were talking about that, like how impactful that must have been for people to see this big, tall, because he's huge. He's way tall. Long, stick straight hair, big old beard. He looks like a guy who's in several metal bands. Seeing him up there, talking about loving his wife and daughters or whatever it is. It must have been pretty impactful, and I would have never expected that from him. My ex-girlfriend, current whatever, it's complicated situation kind of person, she didn't vote the first time that Trump got elected. And I literally cried. I was like, if I had known you weren't gonna vote, I would have done everything to convince you. It was so important. I'm so regretful. And she came up to me and she's like, yeah, we're gonna go to some town hall or local meeting. And I'm gonna bring you in the wheelchair. She gave me a bariatric wheelchair that she used to need before she had weight loss surgery a while back, and I never get a chance to use it because nobody ever wants to take me anywhere in it. And she's like, we're going to take the chair, There you go. I'm gonna push you in there. I'm like, yeah, two little cute girls, girlfriends. Oh my gosh. But I can't even believe that. She wants to do in-person activism. She's gone from completely apathetic politically to actually, making plans and hopefully following through on those plans to take political action. I think the last, I don't know, couple of years have really like radicalized people. I think people who were previously apathetic are suddenly realizing they gotta wake the fuck up and pay attention. You know, my my takeaway from the last election is that I am so disappointed in the Democrats because I believe that they married themselves so deeply to the status quo that it made it impossible for them to actually respond appropriately to their base. But I'm a little bit hopeful seeing this because I think the base is maybe going to make it impossible for them to stop listening, or they won't have a base anymore. Those are the two options, because people are wanting to get involved. People are wanting to fight back. People are seeing what's happening and this like rapid decline into fascism and are like, I don't want to be the person who just let this happen. I don't want to be the person in the history book that just was like, okay, and let the Nazis march right in. And if the Democrats can't figure out how to speak to people who are starting to feel that passion ignite, someone else will. Or they'll start speaking for themselves. And I think back on like the Occupy movement. The problem with leftists is that they're somewhat anarchistic. They are rightfully distrustful of people who want to accumulate power, because that is generally a bad sign. Power is something that is corrupting. And if you want power, then you either think that you're above that corruption, which is, sort of arrogant, or maybe you see that as a feature, not a bug. So, like, I think that it's hard for the true left to really collect and speak as one, because there's such a diversity of opinions and very, very heartfelt, strongly felt, quite logical priorities that people are unwilling to budge on. And it makes it hard for like the true left to coalesce. However, I think that there has been a surge in people who are maybe left curious. They're sort of centrist. They were apathetic, and now they've moved to, well, maybe we should consider some of these like policies like right to housing and actual police reform and all this stuff. Why can't we have equal rights for everyone and la 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 la, And the Democrats have an opportunity to capture those people who were previously apathetic and make them into actual active, not just, Democratic voters, but Democratic political activists, people will go to marches or go to town halls or go to city council meetings or school council meetings or whatever, and actually like represent for, I don't even know, like I would say in a lot of ways the majority of the country, for all the decisive action that Trump and his ilk are apt to take. They really don't have that many people in the United States who are completely on board with what they want to do. Even amongst the people who voted for them, there's a lot of people who aren't 100% on board with what they want to do. And, you're starting to see those protestations and those, like, cries of dismay, like, oh, what have I done? Or I didn't think that this was how that was going to go. And some of it's a little more sympathetic than others. But I think what really won the last election was apathy. I think on both sides, people thought that they could just do what they would normally do during any normal election, and whatever the outcome, it would be okay. Or it would be comparably bad, I guess, maybe. And I don't think that was true, but, it's not the voter base's place to sell themselves on party. It's the party's job to sell themselves to the voter base. Like, politicians, I think, do want to pick their voters. They're more interested in figuring out what demographics they want to sell to instead of trying to speak to everybody. Especially on the right. They definitely don't care about speaking to everybody at all. But I think there's some reason to believe that potentially people who were previously apathetic are now getting to the point where they understand they can't just excuse themselves from knowing what's going on with the world. You don't have to be like super duper plugged in and know every little nuance and every little detail, but it is important to be checking in with the vulnerable communities that you care about the most and seeing what's going on that affects them the most and that you might want to be involved in. There's a lot of different marginalized communities that you could be advocating for, whether or not you're part of them. Advocating for people who are disabled is a really valuable thing because not all disabled people have the ability to advocate well for themselves. Or advocating for, or working with, different charities that work with people who are unhoused. That can make a lot of difference. And if you start working in those communities or making contacts within those communities, you're going to hear about the policies or government actions that affect those communities the most just by osmosis, just by your exposure to those communities. Like, every connection that you make is going to enrich your ability to understand what is actually going on, who's doing it, and how to fight back. Because right now, every single person who is willing to fight back is worth so much, because there are so many people who would love to be able to fight back and literally do not have the wherewithal. Maybe they're already working 3 jobs and they don't have even the hint of a time to be able to spend on anything else. Or maybe they're like me and they're housebound because they're disabled and they can't go and do all the marches. There was a march today and the next town over, And we discussed going, and I'm like, well, I have a medical appointment. I don't think that I can rush over there after appointment and be able to, like, do anything or get anything from it, And maybe next time I'll get a chance. But people are going out in the streets. People are, working with their actual community aid organizations. People are talking to their neighbors and friends from marginalized communities and making sure they understand that they have supporters. It's so important right now for us to resist this deep desire, right, that most humans have to cling to the status quo, to cling to our comfort, and to not want to risk any part of what we have, because most of us understand that things can always get worse, right? Now is not the time to give into that sweet siren call to go back to apathy, to go back to sleepwalking through life. This is our moment in history, people. This really is one of those times where people are going to be like, what did you do during this period? What kind of legacy do you want to have? Do you want to be the kind of person who actually did something? I hope so. I feel like I've been screaming about this growing apathy and how it was allowing a deep rot within one political party to completely destabilize our system of government. It was like watching a really slow motion car crash and screaming and doing everything you could to stop it. And it's just like people just didn't want to see it, so they didn't. Kind of like the housing crisis. People didn't want to see that it was a bubble, that it was unsustainable, and that it was going to fall apart. There were some people who saw it and bet against it, but there was so much momentum that they couldn't stop themselves until it was too late. And of course, when people who play games with money and with commodities like food and housing, education, whatever, when those people play around and they mess up, it's not them that pays the price, So they're not going to listen. The Democratic Party has proven that even though they themselves would use the most apocalyptic, extreme terms to talk about how impossible it was to imagine having Trump in the White House again, they could not bring themselves to take the extreme actions they needed to take to appeal to their base and ensure that they actually won the White House. They did not take their own rhetoric seriously. They showed a bit of apathy against their own rhetoric. They were unwilling to take the action they had to take in the moment. And so now it's up to us to take that action instead. And, you know, there was a recent Adam Conover video, which I believe is why my ex-girlfriend, whatever person, it wanted to go to a town hall or whatever. Anyway, I haven't watched it yet because it seemed too depressing to me, but the title was "There's No One Coming to Save Us." And it's like, yeah. I mean, if the last election cycle taught us nothing other than there is no one coming to save us, then at least we got that one lesson, because it's true. We are the us. We have to save ourselves. We have to step up. We have to say, we don't want billionaire oligarchy in this country. That's what we have right now. Like, literally, we have a billionaire who basically ingratiated himself with one of the campaigns, whoever would be willing to do what he wanted and make him feel like, special man that he is. And they formed a perfect quid pro quo. And now we are living in a situation where big decisions about what's going on with our government are being made by people who we did not elect. That's a little frustrating. We're supposed to be a representative democracy, so it doesn't really feel like it anymore. I mean, if you look at the actual numbers, what public opinion is on any particular political issue does not seem to drive what legislation gets put through in Congress. I mean, historically, over the last 25 years, I don't know if we can really even talk about the last few years in terms of any sort of functional government, but even before that, you could see that there was a strong amount of disconnect between what sort of policies were being enacted and what the people wanted policies to be. And I think one kind of inflection point is when we saw Roe fall, because I think there were a lot of people, even though we had been telling them forever, I'm like, hey, if Trump gets elected in 2016, that's going to mean that Roe v. Wade's going to get overturned. People are like, nah, that's not really going to happen. It's not going to, or if it did, it wouldn't be that bad. It would just be certain states. People don't think about the actual consequences of how bad something like that is until it actually happens. Because when you're talking about politics and law getting entangled with, like, healthcare, which is something that's like literally a life or death situation, very time sensitive, not exactly something the law is very good at. Time sensitive, quick, decisive, correct action. No, that's not how the law works. It's supposed to be slow and careful and considered and well researched. That's not what medicine is supposed to be. Medicine is supposed to be completely different than what law is, and trying to impose law on medicine causes people to lose their lives. It doesn't matter what the law is. This one's a particularly bad one because there are a lot of things that are in sort of legal gray areas now. And if you're a doctor, you're going to want to risk your livelihood, risk going to jail, risk your family's comfort, on a decision about a patient and you don't know whether or not you can legally treat them. I think a lot of people have seen direct consequences, and that has snapped a lot of people out of their apathy. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough because the Democrats sacrificed millions of voters on the altar of not upsetting the status quo on Israel. That was a decision that I think Biden probably made, but nobody was willing to push back against it. They're still not. I mean, it's kind of infuriating, you know. It doesn't matter how important it is to the voters. They would not budge. And so they basically threw, voters they already had in the gutter and did not do enough to counteract the apathy of the remaining voters to get them to come out and vote. So, what's my point here? My point is care. My point is encourage the people around you to care and to act. And I think I gotta go because my dog's sick. Okay, bye.